I've decided to split the $5 million between my mom and me. This decision came right after my dad's funeral. Bob, who had looked through the inheritance papers without asking, said to me, "Elena, don't be greedy." At that moment, I thought to myself, finally, I can quit my job and be thankful for the old man. But then Bob called him a doddering old man. I couldn't help but blurt out, "Are you talking about my dad?" While ignoring my shock, Bob and my mother-in-law were already excitedly talking about buying a new car and going shopping. With everything going on, I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. I was about to burst. On top of all the housework, asking for money, and then insulting my dad, I just couldn't live with Bob and my mother-in-law anymore. Holding back my anger, I forced a smile and said, "Sure, feel free to use the money as you and my mother-in-law see fit." I am Elena Anaya, a 40-year-old housewife. Working with my husband, my parents, both doctors, ran a well-known clinic in our hometown. As their only child, I was deeply loved. After finishing Commonwealth School, I got a job at a big pharmaceutical company. Though my parents wished I had become a doctor, they supported my choice. 12 years ago, my mother died in an accident, leaving me and my father heartbroken. During that tough time, Bob, who was then my boyfriend, supported me. We met through a friend and got engaged 4 years after my mom's death. Bob worked in the food and beverage sector and earned less than me, but I believed we could face any challenge and be happy together. My dad was very happy for us. When I told my dad about our engagement, he said, "I've heard how Bob has supported you, Elena. Thank you so much. Please continue to take care of her." Bob stood up straight and promised in front of my dad, "I will make her happy." Standing next to Bob, I felt truly happy. The next week, we went to Bob's family home to announce our marriage. His mother, who wore a lot of makeup and was divorced from Bob's father, looked at me critically. "Marriage, huh? You're Bob's choice. Isn't she a bit plain for you? And she's older, right? Wouldn't a younger and prettier girl be better for you?" Bob quickly replied, "Mom, you know in pharmaceuticals, right? Elena works there. Her father is a doctor and runs his own practice." I expected Bob to talk about my personality, but instead, he talked about my job and my dad's status. Hearing this, his mother's attitude changed. "Oh, Bob, you should have mentioned these important things earlier. That changes everything. I happily approve of the marriage. Nice to meet you, Elena." "Thank you." After getting approval from Bob's mother, Bob was very happy. However, I felt uneasy. Even though everything was going smoothly with our plans to get married, when we were about to register our marriage, my dad, who is a doctor and real estate investor, gave me an apartment in a luxury building in San Diego City as a wedding gift. I told Bob, "Dad has given me this apartment as a wedding gift, but it's our new home. Let's live here happily and peacefully together." Bob smiled, and we started our married life. However, after getting married, I realized something unsettling. Bob, who had lived with his parents until then, was almost incapable of doing household chores. He couldn't cook, didn't know how to use the washing machine, and showed no interest in learning. He would leave his garbage scattered around, not bothering to clean up. While I wanted us to share household responsibilities, Bob's careless attitude increased my frustration. In the first year of our marriage, I managed all the household responsibilities, even though I had some complaints. Since we were still in the honeymoon phase, with the exhaustion from work and the struggle to keep up with chores, I reached my limit. In our second year, I decided it was time to have a serious talk with Bob about sharing household duties. I bravely shared my unhappiness with Bob, but to my disappointment, he responded without any appreciation or thought, saying, "I'm tired from work too." "You're much better at chores than I am, right? It's better if you do them since I'm not good at it." Just like that, Bob hardly helped with the chores, and I continued to handle most of our household duties. But that wasn't the only issue. After marrying Bob, I found out his mother also had some strange ideas. Bob wasn't really into celebrating occasions, so I decided to send a quality scarf and some carnations to his mother for Mother's Day. Even though I picked a nice scarf from a department store, his mother called me displeased. She criticized the scarf for not being from a famous brand and said it was ridiculous to send such an unknown item. I tried to explain its quality, but she wouldn't listen, insisting she wanted something from a very famous luxury brand. Shocked, I told Bob about this when he got home, but instead of understanding, he said, "Just do as she says." Bob didn't support me, and from then on, we started giving his mother cash as she demanded. Moreover, by our 7th year of marriage, she began visiting our home frequently, always finding reasons to ask for money. Bob would always smile and give money to his mother without any complaints. Even though I had a job, Bob's income was small, making our daily life just barely manageable. Out of desperation, I had to dip into our savings to cut living expenses. Despite my frustrations, I knew Bob cherished his mother, and she had supported me during tough times. She was the mother of someone important to me, and with that thought, I endured. Now in our 10 years of marriage, I continue to handle all the household chores and keep giving money to my mother-in-law. One day, during this routine, my father, whom I hadn't seen in a while, unexpectedly called me. The story he shared during our rare meeting was shockingly unexpected. He revealed that he was suffering from terminal cancer and that treatment was no longer possible. Overwhelmed with shock, tears spilled from my eyes. My father gently stroked my head, just as he did when I was a child, saying, "Elena, this is fate. Let's accept it quietly." I asked my dad why he even had to go through this. My days became a constant balancing act of work, household duties, and now visits to my father's hospital. While my job was somewhat flexible, managing the house was tough. When I told Bob I would be taking care of my father, he didn't react or offer to help. "It's tough with your father's sudden illness. Please do your best," was all Bob said. He only visited my father in the hospital once. I was so busy taking care of my father that I didn't have time for Bob. If I had time to worry about Bob, I wanted to prioritize my father. One day, as my father lay in his hospital bed, he suddenly asked, "Elena, how is your marriage with Bob going?" Caught off guard, I thought about Bob's attitude at home and his mother's behavior. I couldn't answer properly. Seeing my hesitation, my father seemed to understand and told me, "Elena, you don't have to endure this. Think about your happiness. Don't worry, you won't have any hardships after I'm gone." I couldn't hold back my tears, and my father silently and firmly held my hand. 5 months later, the inevitable happened. My father passed away quietly, engulfed in immense sorrow. I started arranging the funeral. Bob showed no interest in my grief and didn't help with any of the preparations. Despite this, I was too busy with the funeral arrangements to pay much attention to Bob. Many friends and acquaintances attended my father's funeral, making it a heartfelt farewell. Even the indifferent Bob and his mother attended. The day after the funeral, I received a call from a lawyer about my father's inheritance. I arranged a meeting with the lawyer and listened to the explanation. The information was all new and quite surprising. After deducting taxes like inheritance tax, my father's estate amounted to over $5 million. He had not only earned income as a doctor, but also made real estate investments, leaving behind such a vast fortune, all of it to be inherited by me, his only daughter. Wrapped in surprise and gratitude, yet trembling at the thought of handling such a huge amount of money, I proceeded with the inheritance process. After returning home, I laid out the documents I got from the lawyer on my desk and started reading them. I was so tired that I ended up dozing off on the sofa for a bit. When I woke up, I heard Bob and his mother talking happily in the distance. Bob and Mom too. "When did you come?" I asked as I got up. Bob came over with a big smile and said, "Yes, Alina, well done," confused by his sudden excitement. I noticed the inheritance papers in Bob's hand. "Wait, don't just read those without asking." I was shocked and upset that Bob had looked through the documents without permission. I raised my voice at him, but my mother-in-law, not bothered at all, happily chimed in, "Wow, an inheritance of $5 million. Isn't that amazing? Now we can live comfortably for the rest of our lives." Confused, I couldn't understand why she would say that so suddenly. Then Bob turned serious and continued, "By the way, about this $5 million. I've decided it will be split between me and my mom." It was right after my father's funeral. Bob, having looked at the documents related to the inheritance I was supposed to receive without permission, said to me, "Elena, don't be too greedy. Oh, now I can finally quit my job. I have to thank that doddering old man you are talking about, my dad," I accidentally said out loud. "Well, anyway, let's proceed with the inheritance process and get the money into our joint account as soon as possible," Bob said, ignoring my confusion. At that moment, Bob and my mother-in-law were excitedly talking about buying a new car and shopping. I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. I was on the verge of exploding, being burdened with household chores, asked for money, and to top it off they insulted my father while holding back my anger. I replied with a forced smile, "Sure, use the money, you and my mother-in-law." "As you wish." Hearing this, my mother-in-law, seemingly satisfied, cheerfully said, "That's the spirit. Alina is quick to agree now. Make sure you work hard and earn money. I don't want our savings to go down, so work hard," she said. I just nodded and pretended to listen to her selfish words. After that, Bob and my mother-in-law started spending money like crazy. Bob quit his job quickly, and my mother-in-law practically moved in with us, staying at our house all the time. They would leave in the morning and come back with expensive brand items. The 5-star restaurant we went to today wasn't as great as I expected. Yes, it was a bit disappointing for us, the sophisticated ones, they would say, acting like they were rich celebrities and dumping all the housework on me. As if I were a maid, Bob seemed to think my father's inheritance would be available right away. He carelessly withdrew money from our jointed account, and my savings of $300,000 dwindled rapidly. When I complained about their excessive spending, Bob just laughed it off, saying, "What are you talking about? Isn't $5 million coming soon? Then this kind of spending is no big deal." I warned him I had already stopped it, but Bob completely ignored me. Then a month later, Bob and my mother-in-law suddenly left for a trip to Bermuda. I wasn't invited and was left alone at home. After seeing them off, I decided to take action. About a week later, while I was relaxing at home, I heard a loud knock on the door, wondering what was happening. I glanced at the intercom monitor and saw Bob and my mother-in-law, both dressed in aloha shirts, standing at the front door. What do you want?" I asked calmly and coldly with anger. Bob yelled, "What are you even talking about? Why won't the door open?" Seeing Bob and my mother-in-law confused as to why the door wouldn't open, I confidently answered through the intercom, "Well, I changed the locks on the door, so of course it won't open." "What? Why?" Bob exclaimed. "Let's talk over this calmly at the nearby cafe." "Please go ahead. I'll join you shortly," I suggested. Bob and his mother, after shouting in front of the entrance, seemingly realized it was full, and soon headed to the cafe. Once I confirmed they had left, I felt a moment of relief. I went to the cafe and saw Bob and his mother already there waiting angrily. "Hey, what's this about? Did you change the locks and hand over the new keys right now?" Bob demanded. There's no need for me to give you the new keys you both need to leave that house, I calmly told Bob and his mother, facing a visibly angry Bob. I showed him a piece of paper. It was a divorce petition. I had already filed out divorce. You're serious about divorcing me? His mother was equally shocked and confused. Alina, why has it come to this? I spoke quietly to the two of them, who were panicking and flustered with the way you've been spending money every day. Are you sure your finances are okay? What money? Of course it's fine, Bob snapped back, spitting as he spoke. Your father's inheritance is coming right. There should still be over $100,000 in our jointed account. Look, I'll show you right now. Saying this, Bob took out his smartphone and opened the banking app to check the account. Suddenly, his expression changed. What's this? Why is the money gone? It was there just the other day, Bob exclaimed. Hearing Bob's words, his mother also hurriedly looked at her phone, her face showing confusion. I revealed the truth to them as they were panicking, not understanding the situation. Of course, it's gone. I'm divorcing you, so I moved that $100,000 to my account as part of the property division. What do you mean? Bob's face turned to anger for a moment, but then he smirked as if remembering something. Fine, I'll divorce to then transfer the inheritance you got from your dad right away. After all, property acquired during the marriage is split half and half in a divorce, right? Well, you might be misunderstanding something, I replied. Didn't you know the inheritance I received, even though it was during our marriage, doesn't count for property division? There was a moment of silence between us. Then Bob and his mother's expressions changed drastically. Perhaps they truly believed they would receive part of my inheritance. I was utterly shocked and could only sigh in disbelief at the unfolding situation. No, that can't be true, I muttered under my breath. But the truth of the matter was glaringly clear. Her face turned red with a mix of denial and anger. Please check for yourself, I said with a mocking tone that I couldn't quite mask. Bob immediately started frantically searching on his smartphone, desperate to prove me wrong as he scrolled through the legal texts online, and his face fell. What's this? Why is the money gone? It was there just the other day, Bob exclaimed, hearing Bob's words. His mother also hurriedly looked at her phone, her face showing confusion. I revealed the truth to them as they were panicking, not understanding the situation. Of course, it's gone. I'm divorcing you, so I moved that $100,000 to my account as part of the property division. What do you mean? Bob's face turned to anger for a moment, but then he smirked as if remembering something. Fine, I'll divorce to then transfer the inheritance you got from your dad right away. After all, property acquired during the marriage is split half and half in a divorce, right? Well, you might be misunderstanding something, I replied. Didn't you know the inheritance I received, even though it was during our marriage, doesn't count for property division? There was a moment of silence between us. Then Bob and his mother's expressions changed drastically. Perhaps they truly believed they would receive part of my inheritance. I was utterly shocked and could only sigh in disbelief at the unfolding situation. No, that can't be true, I muttered under my breath. But the truth of the matter was glaringly clear. Her face turned red with a mix of denial and anger. Please check for yourself, I said with a mocking tone that I couldn't quite mask. Bob immediately started frantically searching on his smartphone, desperate to prove me wrong. As he scrolled through the legal texts online, his face fell. It says here that property inherited by one spouse from a parent is considered separate property. Therefore, it's not subject to division and can't be split between the spouses. His voice was tinged with disbelief. What? Seriously? His mother too peered over his shoulder, her expression turning to one of shock as the reality of the legal standing dawned on them. Then Bob approached me, his demeanor shifting to one of desperation. Alina, please don't divorce me. I have no savings and no job. How am I supposed to live if you divorce me? His plea was laden with panic and fear. But I had seen too much and endured too much to be swayed by his sudden show of vulnerability. Facing Bob's pleading, I stood my ground, my voice firm and unwavering. "What are you talking about? Take responsibility for your actions. I will never forget how you and your mother treated me. I'm divorcing you, and I'll go to court if I have to." My declaration was clear, a line drawn firmly in the sand. Intimidated by my fierce demeanor, which they had never witnessed before, Bob and his mother recoiled. They shrunk back in fear, whimpering softly as they stood there, dejected and defeated. I knew I had finally taken a stand. The weight of my decision was heavy but necessary, as I sought to reclaim my dignity and future from the ruins of a marriage that had veered so far off the path I had once envisioned. After walking out of the cafe, the divorce proceedings between Bob and I proceeded without major obstacles. The $100,000 I had shifted from our joint account was acknowledged as part of the division of our marital assets. Over time, I managed to legally compel Bob and his mother to vacate my house. This was a relief, as Bob, having already squandered the money from our marital division, found himself in a precarious financial state. He was penniless and increasingly overwhelmed with a mountain of bills, stemming from lavish expenditures on their overseas trip and various other expenses charged to his credit cards. As Bob's financial troubles escalated, he sank deeper into debt. Both he and his mother were forced to take on additional loans just to keep up with their mounting bills. Eventually, they moved into a rundown apartment, a stark departure from their previous luxurious lifestyle. They now find themselves working exhaustively every day to manage their debts, a situation that has been a profound and shocking adjustment for both. Meanwhile, I took decisive steps to move forward with my life. I sold the condo that I once shared with Bob, a place full of mixed memories, and moved into the apartment that had belonged to my late father. This move was not just a change of scenery. It was a step towards reclaiming my independence and starting afresh on my own terms. In this new chapter of my life, I continued my work as before, maintaining the same job that had always given me a sense of stability and purpose. However, with the inheritance I received from my father, my financial situation became significantly more comfortable. This financial security has allowed me to live without the constant stress of monetary concerns that once plagued my marriage with Bob. Living in my father's apartment has brought a new sense of peace and continuity to my life. Every day, I wake up with a heart full of gratitude for the man who not only raised me with love, but also ensured that I would be secure after he was gone. This gratitude has inspired me to approach life with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. With the lessons learned from my troubled marriage, I am now more committed than ever to protecting my happiness and well-being. I've come to realize the importance of being surrounded by people who support and uplift me, rather than those who seek to take advantage. As I move forward, I am determined to cherish and make the most out of every moment, focusing on personal growth and happiness. As the days pass, I find myself more at ease, enjoying a life that is not just about survival, but about thriving. My days are spent peacefully indulging in small joys and planning for a future that I now look forward to with optimism and excitement. The stark contrast between my life now and the life I shared with Bob serves as a constant reminder of how far I've come and how much I've achieved on my own.
Pack your bags and get out. This house belongs to my son's new love now. My mother-in-law Eleanor's voice echoed through the two-story house as she threw my clothes down the stairs. I watched calmly as my favorite blue sweater landed at my feet, followed by the rest of my wardrobe. My name is Olivia Parker, and at 34, I was watching my marriage crumble while my mother-in-law gleefully sided with my husband's 23-year-old girlfriend. But unlike what they expected, I wasn't crying or begging. Instead, I pulled out my phone, my finger hovering over the recording app. "These recordings will interest your church group," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the chaos around me. Eleanor froze mid-throw, one of my dresses dangling from her manicured hands. "What recordings?" she snapped, but I caught a slight tremor in her voice. She knew exactly what I meant. For the past year, I'd been documenting everything. Every cruel comment, every manipulation, every scheme she plotted against me. Eleanor Thompson, the respected church leader and perfect mother, had quite a different personality behind closed doors. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed, descending the stairs with what she probably thought was menacing grace. "No one would believe you over me." I smiled, remembering all the times she used her reputation to shield herself from consequences. "Want to bet?" "I have quite a collection. Like last Easter, when you told the pastor's wife I couldn't attend the charity event because I was unstable, while actually locking me in the guest room." Her face paled slightly. "That's not. I was protecting you." "Or maybe," I continued, scrolling through my phone, "they'd be interested in hearing how you sabotaged my birth control because you wanted grandchildren, then called me defective when I had a miscarriage." That had been 6 months ago. The pain was still fresh, but I learned to channel it into something stronger than grief. Each recording, each documented incident had become my armor against her cruelty. "You're just upset about Michael." Eleanor recovered quickly, straightening her designer blouse. "He's found someone more suitable, someone who can give him a family. Ashley is young, fertile, and half his age," I cut in. "Does your church group know you're supporting your son's affair with a girl barely out of college?" The look on her face was almost worth the past year of hell. "Almost." "You ungrateful little," she started, but I held up my phone again. "Careful, Eleanor. I'm still recording." She glanced at my phone, then at the stairs still littered with my clothes. I could almost see the wheels turning in her head, calculating her next move. Eleanor had always been good at strategy. It's how she'd maintained her pristine reputation while systematically destroying mine. "What do you want?" she finally asked, her voice tight. I picked up my blue sweater, brushing it off carefully. "I want what's fair. Half of everything Michael and I built together. The house, the savings, everything." "Absolutely not." Eleanor's face reddened. "This house has been in our family for generations. I only let Michael add your name to the deed because you never thought he'd get caught cheating. I finished for her. Or because you never thought I'd stand up to you." The truth was, I'd spent years trying to please Eleanor, thinking if I just tried hard enough, she'd accept me. I'd attended every church function, volunteered at every charity event, ignored every subtle dig about my common background. But nothing was ever enough. "I have videos too," I added, watching her eyes widen, "of you and Michael plotting how to force me out, planning how to hide assets so I'd leave with nothing. The timestamps match your Sunday school meetings perfectly." Eleanor sank onto the bottom stair, her perfectly maintained facade cracking slightly. "You've been planning this." "No, Eleanor. I've been protecting myself." "There's a difference." I started gathering my clothes, folding each piece carefully. The house was quiet now, save for the tick of the antique grandfather clock Eleanor had given us as a wedding present. "To remind you of the passing time," she'd said then. I thought she meant our happy years together. Now I wondered if she'd been counting down to this moment all along. "If those recordings get out," she began. "You'll lose everything," I finished. "Your reputation, your position in the church, maybe even your precious social standing. Imagine what people would say about the woman who helped her son abandon his wife for a college girl." Eleanor stood up suddenly, smoothing her clothes with trembling hands. "I'll talk to Michael. We can arrange something." I nodded, keeping my face neutral despite the victory thrumming in my chest. "That would be wise. And Eleanor?" I waited until she looked at me. "Next time you want to throw someone out of their own house, make sure they don't have receipts." She hurried up the stairs, probably to make frantic calls to Michael. I continued folding my clothes, each movement deliberate and calm. The recordings had been my insurance policy, my way of making sure I wouldn't end up like Michael's first girlfriend, the one Eleanor had driven away with similar tactics before she could trap her son. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Mom says you're being difficult. Just leave. It'll be easier for everyone." I smiled, thinking of the evidence safely backed up in multiple places. "Easier for whom?" I typed back. "We should talk. Your mom can explain why." The message showed as read, but no reply came. That was fine. I had time, and more importantly, I had proof. Eleanor could throw my clothes down the stairs, but she couldn't throw away the truth I collected, one recording at a time. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls, 12 from Michael, 5 from Eleanor. I ignored them all and made my morning coffee, enjoying the quiet of my best friend Amanda's guest room where I'd spent the night. "You recorded everything?" Amanda asked, sliding into the chair across from me. She'd been horrified but not surprised when I played her some of the recordings last night. Every nasty comment, every scheme. I nodded, pulling up a folder on my phone. Started right after the miscarriage. Something in Eleanor's eyes that day. I knew she was planning something. I just didn't know what. The memory of that day still stung. I'd been in the hospital, barely processing my loss, when Eleanor had swept in with her designer handbag and perfectly practiced sympathy. "Perhaps this is God's way of saying you're not meant to be a mother," she'd said, patting my hand. "Michael needs someone who can carry on the family name." I'd started recording the next day. My phone buzzed again. "Michael?" This time I answered. "We need to talk," he said, his voice tense. "Mom's hysterical." "What did you say to her?" "Just the truth," I replied calmly. "About the recordings, the videos, everything." There was a long pause. "What recordings?" I played him a short clip, him and Eleanor in the kitchen 3 months ago, discussing how to transfer money from our joint account without my knowledge. His sharp intake of breath told me he recognized the conversation. "Olivia," he started, but I cut him off. "I'm done being the villain in your mother's story, Michael. I want a fair divorce settlement. Half of everything we built together. Otherwise, these recordings go public." "You're blackmailing us?" His voice rose with indignation. "No, I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. Meet me at Carson's Cafe at noon. Bring your mother. We'll discuss terms." I hung up before he could argue. Amanda gave me a worried look. "Are you sure about this? Eleanor's dangerous when she's cornered." "So am I," I replied, but my hands shook slightly as I set down my coffee cup. Carson's Cafe was busy when I arrived, exactly as I planned. Eleanor would be less likely to make a scene with witnesses around. I chose a table in the center of the room and waited. They arrived together, Michael looking uncomfortable in his rumpled suit, Eleanor pristine as always in her church clothes. Of course she'd come straight from Sunday service. Her reputation to maintain. "This is unnecessary," Eleanor started as soon as they sat down. "We can discuss this privately." "No," I said firmly. "We discuss it here. Now." I pulled out my phone and several printed documents. "I want half of everything. The house, the savings, the investments, everything we built during our marriage." "That's ridiculous," Michael snapped. "You can't prove." I played another recording, Eleanor coaching him on how to hide assets, discussing Ashley's role in their plan. Several nearby diners turned to look at us. Eleanor's face tightened. "Turn that off," she hissed. "Happy to," I said, stopping the playback. "Once you agree to my terms." Michael looked between us, his confidence wavering. "The house belongs to my family." "Check the deed," I interrupted. "My name's on it." Eleanor made sure of that when she thought I was her perfect daughter-in-law. Eleanor's perfectly manicured nails dug into the table's surface. "You ungrateful little." "Careful," I warned. "We're in public." I gestured to my phone, and still recording. The waitress arrived with menus. We all declined to order. "What do you really want?" Michael finally asked. "I told you. Half of everything. A clean break. No contests, no games, no more of Eleanor's schemes." "And the recordings?" Eleanor's voice was barely above a whisper. "Stay private as long as you both behave. Think of it as insurance." Michael started to argue, but Eleanor grabbed his arm. She knew she was beaten. Her perfectly crafted image couldn't survive those recordings becoming public. "Fine," she said through gritted teeth. "We'll have the lawyers draw up papers." I smiled, feeling the weight of years lift from my shoulders. "Perfect. I'll expect them by Friday. And Eleanor." I waited until she met my eyes. "Next time you try to destroy someone, make sure they're not smarter than you." As I stood to leave, Michael grabbed my wrist. "Why did you record everything? Did you never trust me?" I looked at him, really looked at him. The boy I've fallen in love with was gone, replaced by his mother's puppet. "No," I said honestly. "I trusted you completely. That was my mistake, but I learned from it." I walked out of Carson's cafe with my head high, leaving them to deal with the curious stares from other diners. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. How did it go? They agreed, I wrote back. Amazing what a little evidence can do. Eleanor and Michael had thought they could bully me into leaving with nothing. They've forgotten that sometimes the quietest people are the ones you should fear most. I've been quiet for years, watching, waiting, documenting. Now they knew why. A month after our confrontation at Carson's cafe, I stood in my new apartment, surrounded by moving boxes and fresh possibilities. The divorce settlement had been finalized faster than expected. Eleanor's fear of those recordings had apparently outweighed her desire to drag things out. My phone buzzed with a message from Amanda. Church newsletter just came out. You might want to see this. She attached a photo of the latest church bulletin. There, in Eleanor's monthly column, was a carefully worded announcement about Michael and Ashley's relationship, painting it as a beautiful story of two souls finding each other after his amicable divorce. No mention of the affair, of course. I laughed, remembering Eleanor's face when my lawyer had played the recordings during our final settlement meeting. Her precious reputation had survived, but we all knew the truth. Still spreading her version of events, I texted back to Amanda. Want me to send the recordings to the pastor? She replied. No need. Let her have her story. I got what matters. And I had. Half of everything, including the house which I promptly sold. Michael and Ashley could live with Eleanor for all I cared. I had my freedom and enough money to start fresh. The doorbell rang, interrupting my unpacking. It was Eleanor, standing there in her Sunday best, looking uncomfortable. May I come in? She asked stiffly. I considered closing the door in her face, but curiosity won out. 5 minutes. She stepped inside, eyeing my half-unpacked boxes. This is nice. What do you want, Eleanor? She twisted her hands together, a nervous gesture I'd never seen from her before. The recordings. Now that everything's settled, I want them destroyed. I leaned against the wall, studying her, afraid they might leak. They've served their purpose, she said. You got what you wanted. No, Eleanor. I got what I deserved. There's a difference. She flinched slightly. Michael and Ashley are getting married next month. And you're here because you're worried I'll send the recordings to the guest list. Wouldn't you? After everything. I walked to my desk and pulled out a USB drive. Here, the originals. Her eyes widened as I held it out. Just like that. Just like that. But Eleanor? I waited until she met my gaze. I kept copies. Consider it a reminder to treat your next daughter-in-law better. She clutched the USB drive, her knuckles white. You've changed. No, I corrected her. I just stopped letting you change me. After she left, I finished unpacking my living room, arranging photos of my new life. Trips with Amanda, my new job offer, the small garden I'd started on my balcony. No sign of my old life with Michael, no trace of Eleanor's influence. My phone buzzed again. A message from Michael. Mom says you gave her the recordings. Thank you. I typed back. I gave her what she wanted. Just like you did. Then I blocked his number. Later that evening, sitting on my balcony with a glass of wine, I scrolled through my phone's gallery. Among the new photos were the folders of recordings, my insurance policy against Eleanor's future schemes. She had her USB drive, but I had backups. Some lessons you only need to learn once. Amanda came over with takeout, a bottle of wine, and news about Eleanor's latest church committee drama. We laughed about it now, the power she'd once held over me reduced to amusing gossip. You know, Amanda said, raising her glass, I never thought you'd outmaneuver Eleanor. She always seemed unbeatable. I smiled, thinking of all the quiet moments I'd spent building my case, recording every manipulation, every scheme. She taught me something important, actually. What's that? Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting smart. My phone buzzed one last time, a final email from Eleanor. I hope you understand why I did what I did. I was protecting my son. I didn't reply. She'd gotten her USB drive, her pristine reputation, and her son's new marriage to celebrate. I'd gotten my freedom, my dignity, and the satisfaction of knowing that somewhere in her perfect world, Eleanor would always remember the quiet daughter-in-law who'd outsmarted her at her own game. And that was worth more than any recording.